more than you want to admit. You think about posting something, not for attention from the world, but just to see if she'll react. You wonder if she's talking to someone else, if she's laughing with another man the way she used to laugh with you. And then late at night, the real thoughts come. Did I mean anything to her at all? Was she ever as interested as I thought? Or, and this one hurts the most, did I already lose her before I even stopped talking to her? Maybe this is the first time you've gone silent with a woman and you're not sure what will happen next. Or maybe you've been here before, you've pulled away from someone, and a few days later she suddenly came rushing back asking why you disappeared. The truth is, the moment you stop talking to her, you trigger something. Something in her mind. Something in her emotions. And what she does next says more about her feelings and about you than anything she said before. And do you even know what her reaction really means? Most men completely misread what happens when they stop talking to a woman. They think it says about playing a game, triggering jealousy, or making her chase. They believe that pulling away is a tactic, a way to get control back, a way to win, and that belief is exactly why it backfires. Here's the reality. If you stop talking to a woman purely to manipulate her reaction, you're still making her the center of your world. You're still basing your value on whether she notices you're gone. And when your self-worth depends on her attention, you're not in control. You're still chasing, just in silence. Silence isn't Zet a weapon. It sets a boundary. It's not about punishing her. It's about protecting your own energy when you feel your respect, your presence, or your value isn't being met with the same intention. A man who uses silence as a game is hoping she'll come running back. A man who uses silence as a boundary is prepared to move forward with or without her. Most men stop talking and then spend every hour wondering when she'll reach out. That sip is not strength. That seps is waiting. And waiting is just another form of chasing. The 3% man, he doesn't stop talking to prove a point. He stops because he's no longer willing to invest in a connection that's not mutual. It sets not a dramatic exit. It sets a quiet decision. When you stop talking to a woman, one of two things will happen. She'll lean in or she'll fade away. Most men obsess over which outcome they'll get, but the truth is the outcome doesn't define your worth. Her reaction is simply information. If she reaches out, it tells you she values the connection. If she doesn't, it tells you she didn't, and you're better off knowing that sooner. The problem is, too many men see silence as a short-term trick to get her back instead of a reflection of their long-term standard. They don't realize that women never forget the man who walked away without resentment, without games, and without hesitation when respect was no longer there. So here sits the shift. You don't stop talking to her so she will miss you. You stop talking to her because you won't compete for someone's attention. You stop talking to her because you know connection is earned, not demanded. It starts with the smallest decision, not a fight, not a dramatic moment. Just you deciding not to send that next text. You've been carrying the weight of the conversations for weeks now. She used to meet you halfway, laughing at your jokes, asking questions, telling you little details about her day. But lately, you've been the only one reaching out. Every reply from her feels thinner, shorter, colder. And even when she responds, it's like she's already somewhere else. Tonight, you sit with your phone in your hand. The screen lights up with her name, but it's not a message. It's just the chat window you opened without thinking, your thumb hovering over the keyboard. You could send something. You could make the effort again. But you don't sit. You close the screen, place the phone face down, and lean back in your chair. The room feels different when you stop chasing. There's no ping, no vibration, no little rush of dopamine. Just quiet. And in that quiet, a strange mix of emotions starts to creep in. First, there sits relief. Relief that you're not bending yourself into another shape just to get her attention. Relief that you're no longer auditioning for a part you already played well. But then, there sits the ache. The ache of wondering what she's thinking right now. Is she noticing the silence? Is she wondering why you haven't reached out? The days pass. You catch yourself unlocking your phone, scrolling, searching for her face in your feed, even though you promised yourself you wouldn't. No subtle clue. No breadcrumb to tell you she sits missing you. Until one night it happens. Your phone buzzes. It sits her. It sits not an apology. It sits not a confession of missing you. It sips something small, almost insignificant. A song you once sent her. A random question about something you talked about weeks ago, but it sits there. She reached out. Because in the days you weren't speaking, you saw yourself more clearly. You saw how much space you'd given her in your head. You saw how much of your energy had been spent trying to hold something together by yourself. Sometimes she still come back. Sometimes she went nuts. One of the biggest lies men tell themselves in this situation is this: if I stop talking to her, she still instantly come running back because she still missed me. It sounds good in your head, doesn't set it? You picture her scrolling through your old messages, replaying your voice in her mind, staring at the phone and wondering why it's so quiet. You imagine her finally realizing what she had and rushing to bridge the gap. And in your mind, the silence is like a lever you can pull, something that automatically flips the balance of power in your favor. But here's what most men don't want to admit: it doesn't always work that way. Some will, some won't sit. And if you go silent with the expectation that her reaction will prove something about you, you've already given away your power. The problem is the need behind it. If the only reason you stop talking to her is to get a reaction, you're not actually stepping into your strength. You're still chasing. You're just doing it in a quieter way. And here's the uncomfortable truth. When your worth depends on whether or not she notices you're gone, you're still letting her be the one who decides how you feel about yourself. It sits, not a cheat code. It sits, not a guarantee. And if you use it as a tool to manipulate her, you'll spend every second of that silence waiting instead of living. I want you to understand this. The man who is unforgettable isn't the one who uses silence to provoke a reaction. He sits the one who uses silence to reclaim himself. He's the one who recognizes when a connection is becoming one-sided and makes the decision to pull back, not out of anger, not out of spite, but because he refuses to keep pouring himself into a space where the energy isn't matched. His silence isn't set to trick. It sets a standard. The second one, it's just as damaging and maybe even harder to shake. If she doesn't set reach out, it means I never mattered to her. I know why you believe this. If she misses you, you mattered. But that's not how human connection works. Sometimes she won't reach out because her pride won't let her. Sometimes she's in her own world, dealing with her own battles, and her silence has nothing to do with you. And yes, sometimes she sits moved on. But here's the thing: her reaction doesn't rewrite history. It doesn't erase the moments that were real. It doesn't mean you weren't important in the time you shared. And that value doesn't vanish because she doesn't text you back. She didn't ghost you. You disappeared from yourself. That line might sting a little, but I want you to sit with it. Because more often than not, the real loss doesn't happen when she pulls away. It happens when you lose sight of the man you were before you met her. The man who had his own interests, his own drive, his own identity outside of the relationship. Will I stop waiting for her validation and start validating my own worth? Will I remember who I was before I made her the center of my mental universe? Because here's the part no one tells you. When you stop talking to a woman and you truly focus on living, on building, on being present in your own life, you change the energy completely. If she comes back, she's meeting a stronger, steadier version of you. If she doesn't, you're still winning because you're not left with nothing. You're left with yourself. So stop making her silence a verdict on your value. Let it be a mirror instead. Let it show you where you've been overgiving, where you've been bending too much, where you've been living for someone else's approval, and then choose to rebuild. Because the man who can walk through that quiet without losing himself, the man who doesn't use it to punish or manipulate, the man who simply decides that his peace is worth more than chasing someone who steps not meeting him halfway, that's the man she sets will remember. Even if she never says a word, and that, my friend, is the kind of silence that speaks louder than anything you could ever say. The 3% man moves differently because his compass isn't pointing at her, it's pointing at himself. And this is what most men miss. They think the moment they stop talking to a woman is about her reaction. Will she reach out? Will she notice? Will she chase? But for the 3%, man, that SIP's not the focus. He's not watching the door to see if she walks back in. He sets walking forward regardless. This is what he understands. It comes from the man he's being every single day in his work, in his health, in his relationships, in the way he carries himself when nobody's watching. Whether she leans in or fades away is just information, not a verdict. Most men go quiet as a tactic. They think if I stop talking, she still miss me. The 3% man doesn't go quiet to provoke a reaction. That's still about her. He goes quiet because his attention is too valuable to keep giving where it's not being matched. He doesn't view it as punishment. He views it as alignment. He's not closing a door out of spite. He's simply keeping it open only for those who are willing to walk through with intention. This is how he leads, with presence, not pressure. When he sits with her, he sits fully there. His focus is undivided. His words are deliberate. His energy is rooted. He doesn't scatter his presence trying to force closeness. He allows connection to deepen naturally. And when he's not with her, his life doesn't pause like an empty stage waiting for a return. He's in motion, building, creating, living in alignment with his mission. He knows his time and energy are investments, not giveaways. He understands something most men never learn. Attraction isn't sustained by constant contact. It's sustained by depth, depth of self, depth of purpose, depth of integrity. And respect, that's earned by holding standards, not by clinging or convincing. That's why his silence is different. It sits not cold. That's not laced with resentment or desperation. It sits calm. It sets a quiet boundary that says, I know my value, and I won't overextend it where it sits not reciprocated. With other men, when they stop talking, the silence is heavy. She can feel the need behind it, the unspoken hope that she'll break first. She can sense the ticking clock of his patience, the way he's still orbiting her even without speaking. That's not attractive. It's pressure without presence. With the 3%, man, the silence is steady. It sits not loaded with expectation. It sits not a tool to make her feel guilty. It's simply space. Space where his self-respect lives, where his focus returns to his own path. She doesn't feel manipulated. She feels his groundedness. Even in his absence, she feels the weight of his presence because it's not dependent on constant proximity. And here's the thing, the 3% man never sits by the phone wondering if she'll validate him. He knows the moment he gives his emotional state over to her reaction, he's surrendered his power. So he doesn't ask, he keeps his center. He understands that if she comes back, it's because she wants to, and if she doesn't, it's not a loss, it's clarity. It only makes room for someone whose energy matches his. This is the shift most men never make. For the 3%, man, the goal is to stay himself, to never let the presence or absence of one person dictate the quality of his life. And that's why she never forgets him. Not because he played the game better, not because he outsmarted her, not because his silence made her chase. She never forgets him because he was unshakable. It was a third night of silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just sit in the air, it presses against your skin. The kind where the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the wall clock, the distant sound of a car passing outside all seem louder than they should. You were sitting on the edge of your bed, elbows resting on your knees, phone face down beside you, not scrolling, not texting, not even checking the time. Just sitting there staring at the floor, feeling the weight of the quiet settle into the room. In the beginning, this quiet felt like loss, like something was missing, like a part of you had been removed and the absence was echoing through every hour. You told yourself you were fine, that this was your choice, that you were taking your space. But deep down, you knew you were still waiting for her name to light up the screen, waiting for that one notification that would tell you she noticed, that she cared, that she missed you. But tonight felt different. The quiet didn't feel hollow anymore. It didn't feel like an empty room. It felt full. And you realized what it was full of, pieces of yourself. Pieces you hadn't seen in a while. The version of you who didn't check his phone every 5 minutes. The man who had his own thoughts, his own plans, his own rhythm. The man who didn't live on someone else's clock. It dawned on you that you hadn't really gone silent to take your power back. You'd gone silent hoping she would give it back to you. Hoping she would notice the gap you left and rush to fill it. And in that moment, a truth settled in your chest like a stone. She never had your power to begin with. You had given it away, bit by bit, text by text, response by response, leaving parts of yourself at her doorstep, hoping she'd hand them back wrapped in validation. You sat there staring at the glow of the streetlight through your window, and you felt something subtle but undeniable shift inside you. Your breathing slowed. Your shoulders softened. The tension you didn't even know you were carrying began to dissolve. You weren't waiting anymore. Not in the way you had been. The phone was still there, silent and dark, but it didn't feel like a lifeline now. It felt like an object, just a thing on the nightstand. you could pick it up. Either way, it wouldn't define the next hour of your life. And in that moment, you started remembering. Remembering the man you were before you made her the axis your world spun around. The man with his own fire, his own gravity, his own presence. The man who didn't need to be seen to exist fully. You saw him again in the reflection of the darkened window, in the quiet confidence settling in your chest, and you knew something